The diplomatic hall of the Valtherian Empire stretched impossibly high, its crystalline walls refracting starlight into 1,000 dancing colors. Captain Marcus Chen stood among the delegation of human ambassadors, his dress uniform crisp and uncomfortable. This was humanity's first formal contact with the Valtherians since the Fringe Wars had ended 3 years ago, a war that had nearly exterminated both species before cooler heads prevailed. Princess Lyra Esh walked along the line of dignitaries with practiced grace, her silver skin shimmering under the alien lights. Her forearms moved in synchronized gestures of greeting, and her crown of living crystals hummed softly with each movement. The Valtherian royal was everything the intelligence briefings had described: regal, composed, untouchable. Marcus barely paid attention to the ceremony. His mind wandered to darker places, to the screaming chaos of the Battle of Kronos Station, to the faces of crew members who never made it home, to the small girl he'd found in the wreckage. The princess moved closer, exchanging pleasantries with Ambassador Wu. Marcus straightened reflexively as protocol demanded. He was just another face in the line, another uniform representing a species the Valtherians had learned to tolerate rather than trust. Then she was in front of him. Princess Lyra Esh extended her primary hand for the formal greeting, her expression distant and diplomatic. Marcus reached forward and watched as her entire body went rigid. Her nostrils flared. Her crystalline crown pulsed with sudden, brilliant light. Those enormous amber eyes, previously glazed with ceremonial boredom, snapped into sharp focus and locked onto his face. "You," she breathed, her voice barely a whisper in the sudden, stretching silence. The entire hall seemed to hold its breath. Ambassador Wu's smile froze. The Valtherian guards tensed, hands moving toward weapons. Marcus felt his pulse quicken, his combat instincts screaming at him even as his mind scrambled to understand what was happening. The princess's forehands rose slowly, trembling. She leaned forward and inhaled deeply, a gesture so intimate and shocking in Valtherian culture that several of her attendants gasped audibly. "It's you," she said again, louder now, her voice cracking with emotion. "The scent I could never forget. Smoke and copper and that strange sweetness. Human blood and fire-suppressant foam." Marcus's mind reeled backward 3 years into the past, to a dying station spinning out of control in the void. The battle had been a catastrophe. His frigate had been torn apart and he'd made it to an escape pod just as the reactor went critical. But the pod had malfunctioned, crashed into Kronos Station's lower decks, the civilian quarters. He'd stumbled through smoke and flames, his emergency suit failing, searching for survivors. He'd found her in a maintenance bay so small he'd almost missed her. A Valtherian child, maybe 6 in their years, trapped under debris. Her skin had been gray with shock, her crystalline growths barely developed. She'd been terrified, chittering in a language he couldn't understand, dying in a place where humans and Valtherians were supposed to be enemies. Marcus had pulled her free, used his last medical pack on her wounds, carried her through collapsing corridors to the evacuation zone where Valtherian rescue teams were gathering survivors. He'd handed her to a medic, watched those amber eyes blink up at him in confusion, then turned and ran back into the chaos to find more survivors. He'd never known what happened to her. Never thought he'd find out. "You carried me," Princess Lyra Esh said, her voice thick with emotion that her translator struggled to convey. "I was dying, alone, terrified. The station was falling apart and my mother," her voice caught. "My mother was already dead. I knew I would follow her." The diplomatic hall had gone deathly silent. Every eye was fixed on them. "You pulled the metal from my body. It hurt so much I couldn't even scream. Then you gave me something, medicine, I learned later, wrapped me in something warm, and you carried me through fire." Her secondary hands reached out, touching his face with a gentleness that seemed impossible from someone so alien. "I remember your face through the mask. I remember your eyes when you handed me to the medic. You said something in your language. I didn't understand the words, but I understood the meaning. Stay alive." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "You were just a kid," he said quietly. "I couldn't leave you there." "You were my enemy," she replied, her voice gaining strength. "Your species was trying to exterminate mine. I was taught that humans were monsters, incapable of mercy. Yet you bled for me, nearly died for me, for a child who was nothing to you." She straightened, turning to address the assembled crowd in a voice that rang with royal authority. "This human saved my life during the darkest hours of the war. He showed me that even in hatred there can be compassion, that even between enemies there can be honor. Princess Lyra Esh looked back at Marcus, her amber eyes glistening. I have spent 3 years trying to find you. I described your scent to every tracker in the Empire. I studied every human face in our databases. I made it my mission to locate the soldier who taught a frightened child that courage and kindness can exist even in war. She raised all 4 of her, hands in the highest gesture of Valtherian respect, one reserved only for royalty and the most honored heroes. Captain Marcus Chen, you saved more than my life that day. You saved my faith in the possibility of peace. You are the reason I pushed my father to pursue this treaty instead of vengeance. The Valtherian delegation dropped to their knees in synchronized reverence. Even the guards bowed their heads. Ambassador Wu looked like she might faint from shock. Marcus stood frozen, overwhelmed, as the princess stepped closer and pressed her forehead to his, the Valtherian gesture of deepest gratitude and respect. Thank you, she whispered so only he could hear, for showing me that humans are not monsters, for proving that we can be more than our worst moments. As the hall erupted in stunned murmurs and the clicking of Valtherian approval, Marcus finally found his voice. You're welcome, Your Highness. I'm glad you made it. She smiled then, a beautiful alien expression that transformed her face. We both did, and now perhaps so can our peoples. In that moment, standing in an alien hall light years from Earth, Marcus understood that sometimes the smallest acts of humanity could change the course of history. Sometimes all it took was one soldier refusing to leave a child behind. Sometimes that was enough to save 2 entire species.